afternoon. I will call this meeting of the Traffic Review Advisory Board to order. The Traffic Review Advisory Board takes on items of interest regarding parking and traffic. We are an advisory board, and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council. The Council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If you don't agree with our decision, you can discuss the item with any council member. If the board does not recommend an item, a common council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding that issue. All items require 2 readings before the common council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, August 26th at 6 p.m., and you will be allowed to comment on the item at that time, though the council will take no action. On Tuesday, September 9th at 6 p.m., the item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak at that time. For this afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item twice, at which time, if you'd like to speak, please step to the podium and give your name and address. I do ask that you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item. The item will then come back to the board for discussion and action. I will entertain a motion to approve prior meeting minutes.
Move it. Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Becker,
Aye.
Haas,
Aye.
Szynski,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Schuster is absent.
Motion passes, apparently. We have some tabled business. Agenda item number 1, a request for a traffic signal at the intersection of Elmwood, Murdoch, and Vinland. Current condition in that case is partial stop.
This is just, I just wanted to give you an update where we're at with that. We had some internal discussions, and I did some research based on our last meeting. So at our last meeting, he asked me to look at the accident history. There have been 6 accidents year to date. 4 of those related to cars turning left. 3 of them were cars turning left from westbound Murdoch onto Elmwood. One of those 3 was a DUI, however. And then there was another crash with a vehicle turning left from Murdoch onto Vinland. That one was a little different. It was hit by a car that was traveling south on Vinland, so it seemed to be more of a lack of attention than the intersection. And then there was 1 rear end and 1 weather-related collision. So again, I think that the accidents with the left turns support what we've been discussing with the road diet concept. So then I did talk to the state. They are okay with it, the initial plans. What they asked is they wanted to see what the layout is in relation to the transition from Wisconsin to the Jackson roundabout. I don't have CAD, so I'm working with the engineering and planning department to draw something up. And so I did talk with planning and engineering, and we discussed what path we should take here. So we decided we should discuss it with the Bike and Ped Committee to see if they would want to amend the Bike and Ped plan to include Murdoch. However, we've had initial discussion with them. It didn't sound like they were real favorable to that because they already have a couple other paths that go east-west that would be redundant. But then what we discussed is we'd like to take it to the Plan Commission and then this board one more time in the fall. And then from there, we'd like to have some public hearings or an open house this fall to present the plan because it is going to be something different for the residents and business owners on that stretch of the street. So after having all those discussions, what realistically we think we could probably look at getting that done next year. This year, we wanted to focus on the Sawyer Street bike lanes, which we have got a good start on. Now we have a contractor that we're just finalizing things with to remove some of the striping on Sawyer Street, so then we can put the dedicated left turn lane in, and the shared left turn lanes. I think that'll be a good test to see for the road diet concept, at least give it a start. So once we get that done, and this is something new for us. I know the state's put these shared left turn lanes in as a city. This is the first one we're leading and putting in. So we want to focus on that, make sure we get that done right this year, give the citizens a chance to give us input on the Murdoch road diet concept this fall, and then look at getting it in next year. So I just wanted to give you an update. That's where I'm at with that. I did look at the history too of the intersection, and there has been, I mean, it's almost every year there's a request for a traffic signal there, and it never meets the warrants. I did some preliminary look at work looking at the traffic counts there too, and it really hasn't changed a lot. So I think we need to continue to move forward on that.
Have any questions for Mr. Collins?
Nina's got a lot of those road diets in.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't get a chance to talk to him yet, but I meant to call. They have one on Commercial Street.
Commercial and on the Green Bay Road, the frontage road there.
Just to get some feedback from them on how that was working. So I will do that.
Does the road diet concept actually require a bike lane? I mean, are they mutually exclusive?
No.
Okay, and I didn't think so. I mean, so we could actually move forward with the road diet regardless of what
Right.
Bike and Ped
Yep.
decides to move forward with.
Yeah, that was the other thing. I have to look at redoing the layout, because the initial layout that Chris, my predecessor, had come up with had the bike lanes. So I'll have to look at how the road would lay out without them. And we have options, where you can increase the drive lanes or allow parking's another option. So I guess that's the other thing I need to look at before
Sure.
we come to a vote.
So, best case scenario, this comes back before us
I would say this
a month
this
or two?
fall.
Okay. Well, then I guess my question is, do we really need to do anything? Because it's still technically on the table. We've not moved it. It's more of a status update. I would defer
Well,
to you.
I think we have to vote on the initial request of the citizen, which was to put traffic
True.
signals in there. So
True.
if we turn that down, then bring a motion back to do the road diet concept there.
And I will,
Might be the best way. That way the citizen knows that we acted on their request.
true, good point. Well, then I will entertain a motion for item 1.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, concerns? Hearing none, call the roll.
Becker?
No.
Ross?
He's absent.
Hayes? Haas?
No.
Szynski?
No.
And Herman?
No.
Lost, 4-0.
Then I would like to make a motion to accept Mr. Collins's report and have the city move forward with the initial plans to look at a road diet concept to address the issues at the intersection of Elmwood, Murdoch, and Vinland.
Second. Comments, questions, or concerns?
I just think that, this is part of the state is approving it because this is still part of a state route. So their input is needed, and if there is some, maybe down the line, some change in how that intersection works, the state might have some finances to assist the city in changing, because it is part of the state route through the city of Oshkosh. So I think it's good that we're working in conjunction with the state of Wisconsin on this plan.
We could possibly look at connecting it to the Weawash Trail too, because you're not, you're
It's all
not
that.
too far from.
It's all that.
True.
Good point.
Anyone else? All right. That being the case, call the roll on Mr. Herman's request or amendment.
Becker?
Aye.
Haas?
Aye.
Szynski?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Carried, 4-0.
All right, new business. Agenda item number 2, a request for no parking on Nebraska Street, east side, from West 7th Avenue to 38 feet south of West 6th Avenue. Current condition in that location, 2-hour parking from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
I need to correct that. It should be from West 7th Avenue to 38 feet south. So basically, it's from 7th Avenue, 38 feet south. I need to clean up the ordinance. It was a little confusing when I was reading. That's basically what it is. It's from 7th to 38 feet south. Right now, there's 2-hour parking from 7th down. It's past that, probably about 70 feet or so. So we would still allow parking on the first 38 feet, and then it would be no parking to the north of that, up to 6th. And there's an overhead, some type of overhead door company there. And then there's this gentleman that rented the building right next to it that runs a woodworking shop, and his concern is with parking in front of his garage, and then there's a driveway. And it is confusing because it goes from 2-hour parking, and then there's another sign for 2-hour parking, and then it goes to no parking. So if you look at that sign, it's pointing towards the driveway, and you would think that, okay, well, I can park in front of that garage. So, and I think, and I talked with Tim, who's the business owner across the street, this morning, so I think he might have some comments on it.
You, sir? Approach the podium, name and address, if you would, once you get there.
Tim Schissel, 1223 Western Street. I own the properties across 609, 613, 617 Nebraska Street. I talked to Jim this morning when I saw him out there measuring, and I think he's got it straight now. If it doesn't stay the same, if we could just save that 38-foot stretch there, because there's very limited parking in where we are, and even one stall would help for customers. A lot of times, I think some of the problem arises with this gentleman across the street. UPS stops, delivers parts. I can't tell him where to park. A customer will stop for a couple minutes to get an estimate. He's 5-10 minutes, he's gone. And I have said to him, if there is a problem, let me know. I will make sure we move this stuff. He seemed like he was okay with it. I didn't know it was going to get to this extent. But even if we could save that one stall, I would be very happy. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You don't have much traffic on that street other than the people that come for your business.
And it
or
goes
the other
very
business.
slow because I think we're in the budget one of these years to get fixed.
Yeah, that street's kind of a little pothole there.
Those blocks are kind of bad.
That's a different issue.
Yeah, that's different.
I'm not voting for it, so I'm
No,
not.
that's okay.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would look to you, Mr. Collins, to potentially propose an amendment, just so this reads properly.
Sure.
Since you've got the measurements at hand.
Yeah, I would, we should amend this to a request for no parking on Nebraska Street, east side from West 7th Avenue to 38 feet south of West 7th Avenue.
Okay, that's 6.
So
And I'll
move-
clean up the wording before, we do the ordinance. But
I'll make a motion to accept the amended change on the request.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll on the amendment.
Becker.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Szynski.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Carried 4-0.
All right, back to the motion as amended. Any discussion there?
Move it.
Second. Call the roll.
Becker.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Szynski.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Carried 4-0.
Which then brings us to new business item 3, a request to have the city paint or allow them, and again, I had some clarification on who them is, but them to paint stalls for parallel parking in front of Grace Lutheran Church, 913 Nebraska Street. Current condition, not painted. Motion?
So I think what this is about, and I don't know, maybe, are you here to speak to that one, or?
Name and address, if you would, please.
Paul Voss, 6902 County Road R. The condition right now, there's nothing, and people are using more space where another vehicle could be parked. And all I'm saying that this could be guidelines, and of course, making more room. It would help the elderly and the handicapped. And as far as a painter, it would be Jerry Klein. Klein is also employed at the university, and he does paint for them. So he's up on this, and he wanted to know tonight how he come out. So thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
just for clarification, sir, you're saying right now there's no markings whatsoever
Nothing.
on the, in that, but you want parallel parking
Right.
in that area? Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know what historically we've done. I know that it looks like, I mean, like some areas, Main Street, we've done something with it when we redid the road as far as painting stalls. I guess my only concern is if we do that, I mean, I know in the past, from what I've heard, we've allowed some painting and then we had people remove it. I guess that, my only concern is we might be setting a precedent if we, if we allow one group to do it, then we might have to allow others to do it. So I don't really have any concerns as far as safety or anything goes. I just, my concern is if that's something we want to allow.
Do you know what our city ordinance, does it allow private parties to paint on
I don't think we
public
have an
street
ordinance.
right away?
Yeah,
I think this definitely would be permanent since it's the church, and from 9th to 10th, there's no other one in that area, so it'll be there for.
well, as long as Mother Nature allows it to be there.
Right.
Yeah, the plow allows it to be there. But question for you, Mr. Herman. Did you happen to know if the lines on Main Street were actually bid funded or were they city funded?
I don't
Capital okay. Again, it would just give us some history.
Yeah, we have a painting department
Right.
that does all the striping and the things, the streets. I don't believe the city currently allows private companies to paint on.
And I wouldn't suspect
city
they do
streets.
either, as I was discussing with the gentleman before the meeting. And again, question for you, Jim, potentially. Are there some liability issues potentially involved here as well? I mean, if one of the spaces is shorter than the normal or smaller than normal, do we run into liability issues when fender benders occur as a result? I mean, there's all a potential big can of worms that comes into play.
I'd like to make a motion to table this request because I think we need to know, first off, does the city have an ordinance or something that requires only city staff? I know that issue came up with the bike pedestrian about they wanted to paint lines and they could not do that. It had to be done by city staff only. And I know we don't have any money in the 2014 budget for this, but it could be considered in the 2015 budget if it felt that there was that need, and I understand his concern. So I think we should table this until we get some of those questions answered.
Second. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Herman regarding to his?
I was wondering how many stalls would this entail?
Well, I measured, it's about 115 feet to the south, and it's the church entrance, and 150 feet to the north. So I would say 6, and if they park properly, you could get 7 in there. I don't know what the exact length is for parking, which gentleman said that, check it out. To the north, it would involve 10 to 11 cars at least.
So until we measure that all out,
Right,
get
exactly.
to the specifics of the state code, I think it'd be hard for us to vote on it and move it forward. And then we just have to find out, too, the legality side of, can we allow a private entity to paint those types of markings?
I guess what it is at this time, when there is a service and people come and they see this space, especially if it's a handicapped or elderly, then they got to park across the street, which that's our parking lot, and it can get very aggravating. And
Sure.
Well, I mean,
That-
everyone's parking is dictated by the first person that
Right.
gets there.
Oh, yeah. Especially when there's no parking, specific
Right,
parking
exactly.
measurements to park in. And I understand that, the concern of the church, but I think until we get a couple questions answered, I don't think we can move it forward.
And they do have handicap parking, the roll type that they put out there, but that don't mean nothing to nobody when they come late. They just park and that's
Sure. Okay.
Motion on the table to table, ironically. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on tabling?
So you're looking to see if there's an ordinance requiring that city staff paint the lines?
City staff paint the lines, what is the distance, and if,
How many spaces will
how many
fit?
spaces are we talking? And obviously, if the city has to do it, it's going to have to get put in your paint budget for
Right.
2015. Because what's in there now, I think, is being spent. They've been out painting all summer. So, I mean, and it may not be that big an expense
Sure.
that you could even do a budget transfer type thing, but until we know those answers.
Agree with you 100%. Call the roll?
Becker.
Aye.
Oz.
Aye.
Szynski.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Carried 4-0.
Which then brings us to staff statements. Mr. Collins.
The only other item I wanted to bring up, it relates to this because I'm going to put it on the next agenda, is I also have a request from a citizen that would like to paint 4 feet from their aprons on Lombard over by Westfield because of all the events at the high school athletic fields. They have that problem accessing their driveways. So I think that this discussion will help with that one.
So long as the information comes back before the meeting.
Right,
Absolutely, yes.
exactly.
Agree with you
So-
100%.
I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So there, for some reason, it comes up every once in a while, but I'm getting more requests for paint, and they would like to do it themselves, which I told them I don't think they can do, but I'll look into it. So, and I know in the past the city has painted a lot, from what I've heard, but it gets to be real expensive with the limited paint crew budget. So I know that's something that we've tried to avoid, and a lot of the paintings were discontinued. But so we'll have that discussion next month. And then the other item for next month that I'm still looking into is at a request for a flashing stop sign on Sawyer at 5th.
A stop sign with LEDs?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm looking into that. We have one other one in the city that was put in maybe 10, 12 years ago at Prospect in Wisconsin. So I'm going to look into the accident history, see if it's warranted. But if not, then we just have to decide if that's something we want to invest in or not. So.
They went to solar on that one too.
Yes.
didn't
Yep. That's all I had. Just those.
Okay. Anyone else with potential future agenda items?
they? I've got like some old business and stuff. On old business, one of Chris Strong's last things was that traffic pedestrian beacon on High by the Sage Hall.
Yep.
They're going to move it. But the last time I drove down there, I seen it wasn't moved yet. Or
Sure. I met with the university on that a couple times, and basically to move that crossing, it has to be ADA compliant, and it's currently not. It has to have a 2% grade or less. So where they want to move that beacon. So that would be that would be east.
Yeah.
About a half a block east, where they have another crosswalk there. But in order to do that, they have to do sidewalk work to make it level. So the grade's less than, actually technically I think it's less than 2.5%. But anyway, so it's 2% grade or less. So they were looking at redoing that. We told them, the city wouldn't fund the sidewalk work, so they were going to do that within their budget. And then once they got that redone, they're going to have to take out the current cutouts in the curb too, so they're going to have to redo some work there, because I told them we wouldn't support having two crosswalks a half block apart from each other. So they were looking at that, and we did meet with our engineering department as well, because they wanted some guidance on what they had to do to restore the original crosswalk and what they had to do to meet the current law at the new crosswalk. So the last time we met, they were looking into that, their costs, working with their sidewalk contractor. And then we told them, we would be willing to have our crew move the signal for them once they had all the infrastructure in place. But they were debating whether they could get it done or not by the time school started. So that's where I left it. But now as we're getting closer to school starting, I know they have a contractor out doing some sidewalk work just across over by Algoma. So I can get an update if they're planning on moving that this year or not. I haven't talked to him in probably about 3-4 weeks. So
I originally brought it up because some people would use the beacon, but I'd say 95% of the people cross further down where there was no.
Yeah, I understand that originally was the recommendation that from Chris and from some other parties that where they want to move it to is the spot we originally recommended, but they thought more people were going to go through the building and cross where they put it. So for whatever reason, that's what's happening, and now they're looking at moving it. And they do have they had a vacancy in their facilities manager position. So I don't know if they were waiting until their new person got there or not. But I've been dealing with one of his assistants who's kind of been running the department on an interim basis.
I had one other thing. I was wondering about the possibility of a lot of people ask me about parking on Marian Road at all. There's really no access to get to the Riverwalk at all. They closed off that one city parking lot by that park by Wisconsin and put that big mound of dirt there.
No, there's parking there. There's 5 stalls for the trail right there.
Is there? Okay. But I mean, most of it, there's very limited access. There's no parking on Marian and near the hotel if the hotel has an event or something.
There's parking at Riverside Park down on the other side of the hotel. And then that was agreed upon. The council voted to add 5 parking stalls to Steiger Park there on that side. And then when the South Shore Riverwalk gets done by the old railroad bridge, there'll be a parking area there, but that's on the south side of the river. And then, of course, there's parking down by Abe Ratchland Park and Rainbow Park.
I think there's a couple spots at the new visitor center too that
Yep.
are designated for the park.
I was just wondering about Marion, I mean, it's kind of a limited travel now. I mean, maybe in the future when it gets built up,
Well, there's that new apartment complex going in there, and then council just approved a bank at the corner of Murdoch and High. So there'll be that activity in that area too. But I don't know what the parking, they took the parking off of Marion. We had, I think it was brought up, I think there was parking originally, and then the request of the apartment owners to remove the parking along Marion. Concern of,
Another one is by Rath Lane, near the entrance to that trail.
Okay.
I mean, that's another area where there's very limited traffic. If you put parking on a couple stalls on the west side of Rath there, because most of the Robin people come through onto the street, onto the Oshkosh Ave driveway, and then, we got periodic people taking that road to Two Brothers and the hotel, but.
Yeah, that's actually okay. So, well, the Marion Road, I know there's no parking in it. And I think that it might be due to those apartment complexes, because I know I have had to allow their construction crew temporary permission to park there. So, I'm a little bit familiar with that. I think that's what happened.
to answer your question, because I just came from a Parks Board meeting, I work for the county parks, those 2 issues are being addressed because through the county in partnership with the parks.
Oh, like that trailhead?
For Rath
Yeah,
Lane.
see, I've
And-
walked on the trail, and it seems like the most convenient way is to park on the north side.
Right, they're putting parking stall markings on the north end. And on the Rath Lane side, they're working with the city to put signage up to let citizens know to park on Rath Lane.
Okay.
But they don't want to make it specific for just the trail because that's an open roadway.
But I mean, most people wouldn't have called a park there other than that, really.
When they've called the parks, whether it's city or county, they're telling people to park on Rath Lane there. And don't pull into Two Brothers parking lot unless you're going to the restaurant.
Yeah, because we've gotten complaints from
Sure.
Two Brothers. And I know that's something that the planning department's been, they're currently running the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, and I know that they've been working with the county and Two Brothers on that issue. I got a little involved because I have the sign shop, so I know what they're proposing, but yeah, that sounds.
There's some discussion because there's those 2 empty homes on the old Rath Lane to whether that will end up being a parking lot for, I don't even know who owns them anymore. I keep hearing different stories. Once I heard the state still owned it, then I heard that the Two Brothers Restaurant bought the buildings from the state. They want more parking, so they know there's an issue. And so there's been some meetings already between county parks, planning, city parks to figure out a parking area.
All right, thanks.
Else? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved?
Second. Call the roll.
Becker?
Aye.
Ross? Excuse me. Haas?
Aye.
Szynski?
Aye.
Drummond?
Aye.
We are adjourned.